The average American home has 300,000 items. I think that is a fact that has probably been well established now. However, what people really don't focus on is perhaps how those 300,000 items accumulated and what is the cost of those 300,000 items in any one home, and within those American homes, what is the amount of items and the worth of those items that are lying around unused and perhaps have never been used. We're going to analyse that in this video. What I think is personally quite funny when you hear the fact that the average American home has 300,000 items is I think many of us think of a home perhaps like this, absolutely filled to the brim of stuff. But I think what's most fundamental to actually realise is 300,000 items in a large American home doesn't look like much. You may very well have a home that looks quite spacious like this, or quite ordinary or normal, but then have a room of around 300 square, which is about the size of my apartment, that is solely designated as storage. And herein lies the problem, because it's quite easy to delude ourselves that if we have this room of storage where everything is neatly put away, that actually we don't have much stuff, or do we? And that is the danger of how clutter can creep up, and how we may be able to convince ourselves that it is okay to buy more things because the rest of the home doesn't look that cluttered. Well, let me tell you a few facts. Of the 300,000 items in an average American home, roughly that equates to around $30,000. Now, I don't know where people are getting those figures from. However, I'm thinking they mean on small items, not large items like sofas and furniture, but all the other bits and pieces. And then in terms of unused items, it's said that there is around $7,000 sitting around in the average American home that is of completely unused items that people bought not really thinking about, and they have just sat in a storage box or on a shelf ever since. And then talk about a waste of money in terms of clutter, as when people then realise that they haven't got enough space for all that clutter, it's estimated that around $68,000 a year on storage space, which is the cost of that amount of space, a 300 square foot storage room, if you were to break down the monthly household size. That's the amount of money actually going just to storage space. And another statistic, roughly 11% of US households spend $11,000 on off-site storage per year. And then a further fact that Americans collectively spend $2.7 billion a year replacing items and rebuying items that they actually already have but simply can't find due to disorganisation or too much clutter. So if you currently live in a cluttered home, just look at how much your clutter is costing you. It's costing you all this space in your home, which really is costing you a portion of your mortgage perhaps every year. You might even be paying for off-site storage. You might be rebuying things because you can't find it. So I think if anything was motivation to stop buying things and to start organising your home now, so at least you can find things and stop rebuying things, then eventually the next step might be also decluttering and getting rid of the clutter that you have. All this will save you money, and possibly, although I am torn about this next thing, if you did try to sell some of the items that were unused, you could possibly even make some money back. So if you're new to my channel, I actually focus on minimalism and simple living, and sometimes rather on the extreme side of minimalism. But that is because I live in a very tiny home, partially for frugality, partially to obviously save money, hence frugality, and because I enjoy travel. So why have a huge home if you're going to be away quite a lot of the time? You know, that lifestyle's not for everybody. So what I'd like to start also discussing on this channel is how to maximize your space in your home, whether you have a small home like me or a large, perhaps American home, because I think in general, American homes are quite a bit larger than in other places in the world. Maybe because there is more land in general. So over the next couple of videos, I am going to be focusing on how it is possible to stop buying, start to stop over-consuming, and I'm going to focus on some different areas than I feel have been covered before, because I know that there's quite a few videos already out there about shopping addiction, things to do for a no-buy, but I think I could perhaps suggest some more realistic options. And I personally like to think on sometimes positive outcomes rather than scaring people completely from the negative outcomes, as I think if we use NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, it's a much more productive way to make our minds think differently about how to move forward in future and to stop that cycle of buying quite as much, because we're not talking about buying 1 or 2 items a week. We are talking mass scale. To accumulate 300,000 items in a home, people are buying sort of more than 50 items a week or a lot all at once. It is a huge, huge quantity. You do the math of how much you would have to buy to accumulate 300,000 items. Albeit, yes, some of them are sets. If I was going to give one main piece of advice today for people wanting to even start their decluttering journey, if that is too overfacing for you, my first piece of advice would be to organise first, because through organising everything first, you will see how much stuff you've got, you will see where those hidden things are that perhaps you've been replacing, and then through facing it all, but not giving yourself the pressure of actually getting rid of things to begin with, I think that you will begin to see that you really kind of need to start decluttering. Especially if it's causing you stress, causing you to feel disorganised and like you're living this chaotic lifestyle where you can't find things. Organise first, because I feel that that will then push you into wanting to declutter. Now, for any of my regular viewers, this may seem like a little bit of a different style video to normal, and that is because I was told recently by some of my channel members that perhaps the reason that most people are minimalists, or particularly in the US, is that in 2020, which we all know what happened then, up until 2022, because a lot of people were home, overspending, overconsuming, there is now this need of wanting to correct what happened in those years. And it was a very interesting insight, so thank you for those people that told me that in the members, because I often wondered what people's reasons for minimalism was, whether they were doing it to just have a tidy home, whether they were doing it to be more organised, whether they were doing it because it made it easier to clean, whether they were doing it because of frugal reasons, or whether they were doing it for environmental reasons. And many people have said that they think that many people, particularly in the US, have shopping addiction or overspend and overconsume, and they are trying to cut or curb that problem or that addiction if it's that severe. So I thought we'd do a few videos based on that topic, but obviously I do cover all things minimalism and simple living here. But we'll try a few of these videos out and see if they are of any use to anybody. But I would be very interested to know in the comments down below what your reason is for being a minimalist. I hope you've enjoyed this video today, and I'll see you in the next one where we cover more on this topic. Bye!